Tonight on Joy News Prime, delegates of the opposition National Democratic Congress to elect parliamentary candidates for the 2020 elections in primaries slated for Saturday across the country.
You can only run on your records. If you don't run on a record, you run on deception, you run on deceiving people, you run on talking. I'm running on my record.
I'm not saying that as an MP, it is my mandate to do rules, but I know I can lobby to ensure that all these things that I've mentioned are.
I've been there since 1992, and I've worked there, I've operated, I've been with them, and so I have no doubt at all in my mind that come this primaries, I will win it.
I've got an in-depth knowledge of what is, which I think would help massively to make sure that we cover the area.
We'll tell you about some of the key contests as your election headquarters outlines the plan for coverage. Former Commissioner of Shraj urges Parliament to pass Conduct of Public Officers Bill to clearly spell out conflict of interest situations and avoid instances such as the case of the suspended Chief Executive of the Public Procurement Authority. 25 years after the famous Beijing conference, women's rights advocates meeting in Accra to assess its impact are calling on government to pass the affirmative action bill. And in business,
steel manufacturers renew call on government to ban imports of fabricated metals to make the local market a preserve of local producers.
Ghana support by making sure that putting the importation ban on any type of fabrication material so that we can create the more and more jobs and give the quality products at the doorsteps.
Now, there are calls for the criminalization of sexual deprivation. In short, an NGO is pushing for the jailing of people who deny their partners sex.
Position that deprives one party from sex consistently will warrant a domestic violence.
I'm Israel, and Joy News Prime comes to you live from the Joy News studio. I could come here in Accra. Digital address G80992539. Stay tuned in. The National Democratic Congress will on Saturday go to the polls to elect parliamentary candidates for the 2020 general election. In the Jirapa constituency, incumbent Member of Parliament Dr. Francis Bawana Dakura is pitching his strength against his former campaign strategist and former DC Cletus Seidu Dapila. There is also serious contest between incumbents Joseph Yelechere and Superintendent retired Peter Tobu. Joy News' Upper West correspondent Rafiq Salam takes a look at the primaries, the Jirapa and West constituencies.
Before the death of former Minister of Roads and Highways, Edward Kojo Salier, the Jirapa parliamentary seat was considered the safest for the National Democratic Congress in the Upper West region. However, since his death, there has a big rift in the party, leading to the loss of the seat to independent candidate Paul Derogoba, a former cadre, severe ties with the party after losing parliamentary primaries held by the party in 2011 and contested the 2012 election as an independent candidate and won. His stay, however, in parliament lasted for only a term as he was defeated in the 2016 election by old foe Dr. Francis Bawana Dakura. Dr. Francis Bawana Dakura, a social anthropologist, is seeking a third term in parliament. His motivation for seeking a third term bid is not based on deception, but due to his impeccable record as a member of parliament.
One word, I'm a performer. I perform, I deliver, I'm tried, I'm tested, I'm reliable, I'm dependable. In politics, you can only run on your records. If you don't run on a record, you run on deception, you run on deceiving people, you run on talking. I'm running on my record. Even when I went to parliament in 2009 on a by-election, I went almost half a year late, but you look around Jirapa, from health, water, rural water, boreholes, cheap compounds, schools under trees, I'm just a performer.
However, it won't be smoother for him this time round, as he's going to slug it out with his former confidant and former Yoruba District Chief Executive Cletu Seydou Dappala. Cletu Seydou Dappala was the chief campaign strategist of Dr. Bawana in the last election. Their relationship, however, strained a couple of years ago. Cletu Seydou Dappala says his 22 months in office as a district chief executive have made him better appreciate the challenges of the area and that he is in good stead to solve them.
Issues of water, issues of schools not having furniture, issues of roads, issues of. I'm not saying that as an MP it is my mandate to do roads, but I know I can lobby to ensure that all these things that I've mentioned are done for my people.
There are 4 other aspirants in the race: Bright Salia, Dr. Regan Dipla, Vitus Bang, and Richard Kunang. In the West constituency, it has always been Joseph Yedechere since the carving out of the constituency from the West Central constituency in 2004. Joseph Yedechere came to the limelight during the Provisional National Defense Council PNDC days when he was appointed as the first regional secretary, now minister of the Upper West region, following its creation in 1983. He was then 29 years and a pharmacist. He believed that his record of empowering the people, especially through education and health, will be key for his retention. Former Executive Secretary of the Inspector General of Police, Superintendent retired Peter Lenchene Tubu, has an appeal tax and is bid to unseat a man loved and seen as an extrovert by his constituents. Superintendent retired Peter Tubu, however, debunked rumors that his resignation from the police service has nothing to do with the retirement of his former boss and Inspector General of the Ghana Police Service, David Asante Apietu.
So I am not in a position to be giving reasons to include that probably I was the cause, but I don't think I should be the cause. This is a professional police officer who have decided that, listen, I have other alternatives in life that I want to pursue. I am getting out of the police service and I'm going full vim into active politics, and that's it. Why should it affect somebody's job?
Reporting for Joy News, Rafiq Salam.
So these 2 constituencies are just two of several in the Upper West region where contests are going to be held. Across the country, we're having about 157 constituencies where they're going to be contests and primaries. And Joy News, your election headquarters, we're going to bring you comprehensive coverage of all of that. And I have been joined in the studio. I have with me Malik Dab, who's the deputy head of political desk here at Joy News. And we're going to be having a conversation about the key constituencies to be looking out for. Thank you very much, Malik.
Thank you
for making time. Now, so it always gets exciting when we have to do something like this. Election headquarters is coming back on tomorrow. Let's look at some of the key contests we're looking at in the NDC primaries.
No, I mean, let's start from where Rafiq just left off, the West constituency, where Joseph Yedechere is going up against. I mean, he's been an incumbent MP since the constituency was created in 2004. He's run on that seat. Virtually, he has a certain stranglehold on this constituency until this time around when Peter Tubu, who was recent past Executive Secretary to the Inspector General of Police, David Asante Apietu, decided to throw his hat into the race. When you have conversations with people on the ground, it looks like a tall order for him. A tall order essentially because, well, he may have been well known, he may have a big name, he is a celebrated police officer. On the ground, however, when it comes to those who are the decision makers and who essentially are the decision makers, the NDC has 9 executives of each branch, and the branches are essentially the polling stations. These 9 executives are the persons who vote to elect who the parliamentary candidate is and who a presidential candidate of the party will be in an election. Now, when you don't play a key role in the selection or the election of the branch executive, then you know that you have a difficult task in getting the support that you need to become parliamentary candidates. So that's a problem that Peter will have in that constituency. It looks like the stranglehold that Yedechere has still remains in force. I mean, when you come to the Greater Accra region, quite a number of constituencies. The famous one, Ningo Pram Pram, Sam George.
And what we're learning that Sam George is likely to lose that? How's that possible?
Sam George has an uphill battle because he's going up against Michael Tetteh. Michael Tetteh and Sam George were politically regarded as E.T. Mensah's boys. And you know that E.T. Mensah has been a long-standing member of parliament since 1997 in that constituency. So these two young men were E.T. Mensah's boys. Somewhere along the line, they both broke away. Sam George broke away, Michael Tetteh broke away. Michael Tetteh was actually the NDP's parliamentary candidate in the 2012 elections. But he didn't run. A few days to the election, he pulled out of the race. But he filed. Now, fast forward to 2016, he actually filed to run on the ticket of the NDC, but was disqualified because the party has a rule that says that if you leave the party and you rejoin, you have 4 years. 4 years have to elapse before you can qualify. So that 4-year moratorium, he didn't pass it. So he was disqualified in the 2016 election. Now he's come back. He has quite some resources, which is helping him in the campaign. I am being told that there were some 9 branches that didn't elect their executive. So these 9 branches did not vote in the presidential pool, the one that elected President John Mahama. Somewhere along the line, some supporters of Michael Tetteh managed to organize these branch elections on the blind side of Sam George. Of course, there was a petition for these to be disqualified, but that petition was dismissed by the party's appeals committee, and so that stands. Michael Tetteh is banging his hopes on these 9 branches, these 5 branches, because 9 times 5 will give you quite a number of delegates.
All right.
If all of these vote for Michael Tetteh, that may tilt the scale against Sam George in that constituency.
Right. Then again, in Greater Accra, Oyelita, Adenta.
Yes, Adenta. Again, it's an uphill task. Uphill task because the NDC's parliamentary candidate for that constituency in 2016 was Mohamed Ramadan. He was a presidential staffer at the time. I am being told that he played a key role after he lost the elections to the MPP in the 2016 election. He remained in touch with the constituency. He was involved in the election of the branch executive. These are the delegates. In the time that they were doing the branch executive elections, Nana Oyelita said she was still doing consultations. So she didn't play any significant part in the conduct of the branch executive, unlike his main contender, who virtually supervised all of the elections and must have influenced the election of certain categories of people who are now delegates. Okay. So that means it's a tall order for her in that constituency.
Okay. So these are just a few of the constituencies we are looking at and the contests that we're looking at. And that is what you're to expect tomorrow, Saturday, as we roll out. But you tell us about the plan, because we have people strewn across the country just to cover these primaries.
I think this is one of the most comprehensively planned parliamentary primaries since I have been involved in election coverage here. We have, as the BBC tends to say, an unrivaled network of correspondence across all the 157 constituencies where voting will be taking place, and we're bringing you minute-by-minute coverage of what is happening in these constituencies until results are declared.
And we actually have some of the men already out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So people are on the field gathering information. We have people who will bring you live reports from these various constituencies. And we have specific constituencies where we are expecting things to happen. These are our own hotspots. And we have live coverage from these constituencies.
Right. Now, finally, we have 275 constituencies, but the NDC is holding the parliamentary primaries in 157 of them. That leaves over 100.
118 left.
Yeah. Why are these other over 100 or 100 plus constituencies? Why don't we have a contest?
Quite a number of things. The key amongst them challenges. So if somebody is disqualified, the person files a suit or the person raises an appeal, the party can conduct the election until they place an injunction. So quite a number of reasons are the reasons why the party decided that for these 118 constituencies, they should deal with the elections. Of course,
of the 118, there's some where there are no contests, so they're going unopposed.
Yes, some are, even the 157, there are constituencies that are going unopposed. Like Odododio, for example, Milante Vanderpoy, he's unopposed, so the election is coming on.
Oh, it still take place?
Yes, it will take place, even though he's unopposed, so he's going alone.
Okay, thank you very much, Malik Dabu, and that's what you're to expect tomorrow here on the election headquarters as we bring you comprehensive coverage of the parliamentary primaries of the opposition National Democratic Congress. Moving on, former commissioner of the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice, RAD, Justice Emil Short, is urging Parliament to pass the Conduct of Public Officers Bill into law to give legal backing to the Code of Conduct designed for public officials. He is confident the bill, which was spearheaded by Shraj, if passed into law, will deter public officers from getting themselves entangled in conflict of interest situations. Mr. Short explains to Joy News the law is designed to avert situations such as the case of the Chief Executive Officer of the Public Procurement Authority, who was suspended by President Akufo-Addo on Thursday over allegations of corruption and conflict of interest.
You know, Shraj has issued guidelines on conflict of interest. And during my term of office, we started discussions with the Attorney General Office on passing legislation to deal with conflict of interest, which resulted in the drafting of a bill called the Conduct of Public Officers Bill 2013. You know, so but that bill deals with conflict of interest, gifts, assets declaration, and so on. Unfortunately, it's still in Parliament. Parliament has not passed it. It should be passed as soon as possible, and that is GII, Ghana Integrity Initiative, Ghana Anti-Corruption Coalition. They've all, you know, called upon Parliament to pass the legislation as quickly as possible. I am urging Parliament as soon as possible to pass the Conduct of Public Officers Bill 2013, because this is an important piece of legislation which will assist in the promotion and of, you know, the anti-corruption fight. And so this is the message I want to send to Parliament, that as soon as possible they should ensure that that bill is passed.
Michael Bwedi of the Ghana Integrity Initiative, on his part, wants the board of the Public Procurement Authority dissolved. He also believes administrative measures for dealing with conflict of interest situations are not enough.
The board has a role. The board supervises the work of Mr. Boateng. To what extent the board continue to pass, per the documentary, about 14 contracts going to the same entities, and I'd raised no question. I'd done no due diligence, you know. I mean, is it that the board slept on its job? Is it that the board's experience in procurement is in question? Is it that the board didn't care? We don't think that, you know, the board did a good job on this score, and therefore the president must look into the work of the board. I think that immediately the board has not demonstrated that they are capable of protecting the public purse as far as the PPA is concerned, and therefore the board must be dissolved immediately. Then investigation into the conduct of the board commences. As a matter of fact, we are even asking that investigation must go into all the single-sourced procurement that had gone on under the tenure of Mr. AB and the current board. So the investigation should not be into just the conduct of AB as has been revealed by the documentary, but must be extended far beyond AB to the board and other single source contracts that the board awarded within the period.
Well, there are some who also think that conflict of interest, as we have now, is only part of the code of conduct of what you call public officers, and there is no sort of legal backing, you know, to it. So public officers sometimes we see it as optional and not really as obligatory. There are some who are saying that the Public Officers Conduct Bill that was, spearheaded sometime in 2006 by the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice should help us to be able to get a clear lines in terms of conflict of interest and the punitive measures that should be, meted out to people. What do you make of that?
There are administrative measures that are taken, or that can be taken when people are found in conflict of interest. And the question that we may ask is that, have we been enforcing those administrative standards and measures? No, we don't. We gloss over it, we pretend it's business as usual, and therefore we are reaping the ills of perpetuating conflict of interest. There are administrative sanctions which are punitive enough that we could enforce. Whilst awaiting a criminal backing, a criminal sanction, or a law that enforces expels our criminal sanction. We're
talking about the board of the Public Procurement Authority has explained that it does not have control over which entity wins what contract in a single restricted and single source procurement. In a release Friday, it explained that the selection of suppliers, contractors, and consultants for goods, works, and services presented by procurement entities are not in its control. Now, the Ghana Standards Authority is pushing for a bold initiative to enforce the use of weights and measures in local transactions across the country. Apart from the established supermarkets which price in weights and other standards, measuring cans and other non-scientific means are the main basis for pricing almost all food items in the country's markets. Director General of the authority, Professor Alex Dodu, however, says that Weight and Measures Act 1975 will from August 31 be enforced to the letter. He assured there will be extensive and thorough public education on the system to do away with any opposition that might arise due to widespread misconceptions, adding traders found culpable will be punished.
What the Ghana Standards Authority is trying to do is that since 1975, we have had the Weights and Measures Act. The act is designed to ensure that both consumers, sellers and buyers, are not cheated. Over the years, we have a very, very unsatisfactory regime. And the law was clear from the beginning that anything that is measured or weighed must start from, first and foremost, what are you weighing it in relation to? So we have established a global standard. So when we say 1 gram, it should mean 1 gram or 1 kilo in any jurisdiction. Unfortunately, in Ghana, the application of the law has been, at best, variable, but the reality is very, very poor. So you go to the market, you want to buy foodstuffs, you are either cheated or you cheat the farmer. In fact, we started fundamentally by looking at simple things like Kenke. And the amazing thing was that even within the same seller, you have about a 30% variation in weight. Between sellers, it's also about 30%. Now, you look at water, you look at electricity, you look at fuel stations, you look at, across board. So what we are trying to do is to start from where the need is biggest, definitely the farmers. When a cocoa farmer sells cocoa, it should be based on the weight and not on the bag. And the weight of the bag should be consistent across jurisdiction. So what we are trying to do is that how do we give the farmers appropriate skills that they can use for their business? These skills should be at least not subject to any variation so that there are no uncertainties in their business. So that when they buy 1 bag of Gary, if it's 100 kilos, you can train them to sell it at a price to get an expected amount and there'll be no doubt. When you go to maize or, grains, that is where the biggest worry is. Because quite often, middlemen and middlewomen will buy from the farmers using old sacks, which are more expandable, so they take more, and then repackage it into the appropriate bags and sell on for a huge profit. It cannot be accepted. So the system must be fair and clear. It must be transparent. And for us, 1 kilogram, in fact, since I know, from 1895, it's 1 kilogram. The moment that changes, then something is wrong. So we will enforce. And I think the fact is that we need boldness, and we are not lacking in it. We would enforce, and we would go to court for the appropriate punishments, because without that, it's not going to change.
Well, some farmers who were at the national dialogue on the use of standard scales, weights and measures share their experiences.
There is no measurement, there is nothing, so the people who buy it come with big, big sacks, and they come and then share. If you take your maize, maybe 10 bags to the market, at the long last, you will realize that the buyers will tell you it's 8 bags. It means that anytime the farmers come out with their produce, they lose much. And tomatoes, the big boxes that they are using to pack it as 1 box, is also not helping. I'm looking at the cost of farming nowadays. It's the same method our great-grandfathers and mothers used in buying and selling. That is what we are still using. So the farmers are getting no profit, and as such, the youth are not interested in farming. Some are migrating and they are dying on the desert and other things. The farmers are getting poorer and poorer. That is why we've realized that it's better we advocate for the use of standardized measures and weight for our produce, not only maize or groundnut. is all the things that we produce as farmers that we want scale, so that what we will realize is the truth of what you have produced.
Some residents living at Medina here in Accra are blaming the devastating effects of floods on a stalled drain project in the area. They accuse contractors of abandoning the project since December last year. Komladum visited the community and reports several shops are destroyed by floodwaters at the Leach downpour and that some residents have had to pack out of their homes.
According to residents who live between the Hannah School complex and the Melcom Retail Center at Medina in Accra, a contractor began work to fix drains on the road. Few months into the execution of a project, the contractor abandoned works, leaving gravels and equipment on site. As a result, one side of the road here has a drain partially constructed, while the other remains untouched. Residents say their homes are constantly flooded, forcing some people to leave the area. Samira Bawa tells me some homes and offices are submerged at the least downpour.
Whenever it rains from up there, we don't know, because of the construction, it has been paused, and due to that, when it rains, all the water from up there, it drains down here, and this place gets filled up. When you are in town and it rains, you better stay there because you may not be able to pass through this place. So that's the situation here now. When it floods, it enters our room. My sister's shop, very flooded. Every morning when it rains, we have to do this cleanup. Yeah, fetching water and stuff. Because they stopped the construction, situation got worse because they stopped the construction over there. And then due to that, all the gutters here are choked. You can see the sand here. Whenever it rains, they have to clear the gutter.
Melody Akosia was forced to close one of her boutiques due to the floods.
When it rains, the situation here is very, very, very bad. This place gets flooded even if it rains a little bit. It enters the shops. Due to that, we have closed this Weavon shop because it enters the shop and spoil everything, our clothes and what we call it, our stuff. So we don't longer open the shop again. I've been here for 2 years. Since then, this is how the situation has been.
She tells me contractors compelled them to remove portions of their structures to make way for the project.
Somewhere last year, I think somewhere July, and the contractor came that they were coming to construct the gutter. So we should move our canopies and stuff. They are coming to expand the gutter. So we moved our canopies and everything, and all of a sudden, he just abandoned the contract and left.
Craters or potholes, call it deep gullies, and you will not be far from right. Drivers say they are tired of fixing car parts. The roads are terrible. Our car parts are always getting damaged.
When it rains, you can never use this car because it's like it can even carry you away. It is that bad, and this is one of the major roads, when you are out from the market.
Passengers are equally enraged. They simply want authorities to fix the problem before disaster strikes. My knees hurt whenever I apply this road after going to buy foodstuff from the market. Sources within the Medina La and Kwantana Municipal Assembly say the project, which stalled in December 2018, was an initiative by the Member of Parliament for the area, Boniface Abubakar Sadiq. Though they cannot indicate why the contractor abandoned the project,
Illegal miners have destroyed about 300 acres of the Anyasu East Forest Reserve in the Western North region. Forestry Commission officials are overwhelmed by the devastation of economic tree species carried out in just 2 days in the reserve, which was replanted in 2003. An operation by the Rapid Response Team of the Forestry Commission led to the arrest of 3 persons and impounding of 4 excavators. Oiming Teria of our security desk has more in the following report.
3 species like Cinderella, Odum and Cyber, planted and nurtured over 16 years, all gone on about 25 standard football pitches. The armed miners invaded the reserve and said to have worked day and night with 4 excavators. Besides excavation in search of gold, they engage in logging of economic trees.
Surprisingly of these people as working at night these days because they know that when they do it during the day, you come and arrest them. So when we heard of it during the night, I asked my unit supervisor, who is in charge of our rapid response team, to come here, and we were able to arrest 3 people and handed them over to the police. So when it happens in the night, it will be difficult for a forest guard to come here alone, since the people are armed. It's not easy to confront them single-handedly. So it takes a whole team who are also armed.
2 rivers, Subin and Odo, which are the only source of drinking water for people of Mrewa and surrounding communities, have been destroyed. The miners have blocked, diverted their course and washed minerals directly into them. Forestry officials described the destruction as one of the heaviest in recent times. Eric Asari is Bibiani District Forestry Manager.
In terms of land size, as I told you, part is off reserve and the other part is reserve. So from the pillar up to that stretch is about 3 hectares that they have destroyed.
3 suspects identified as 25-year-old Adamu Musa, Ibrahim Musa, 21, and Amidu Seidu, 36, were picked up during the operation. They told police they are from Lamishigu, Yipala, both in Northern Region and North Centreso in Kumasi, respectively. Superintendent Christopher Mpiani is Bibiani District Police Commander.
Currently, we are investigating the case of illegal mining involving these 3 gentlemen. Our initial investigation has revealed that these gentlemen were sent there to work as security officers for someone whom they are yet to reveal his or her identity. So we are trying our best to get whoever is behind this act.
Mr. Mpiani also shares his experiences about the destruction illegal miners cause to the environment.
But I've seen some of the pictures and it's very, very devastating. And I believe that it's time that we send a message to all those outside who are trying to, cause such a problem to our environment or destroy nature, to understand that we need to have this. This is something that has been handed over to us by our forefathers. If we cannot add anything to it, we need to protect what has been handed over to us. So on our part, we also do what is expected of us as law enforcement officers to ensure that the fight that we are all fighting, we're able to get the necessary results.
From Bibiani in the Western North region for Joy News, Ohim Interior reporting.
Well, Akanu Joint Border Post in the Volta region has been commissioned twice already. First by former President Evans Atta Mills and then by John Mahama in 2017. The automated border post put together by both Togo and Ghana is almost a white elephant as the system lacks the software required to make it operational. From the Volta region, Ivy Setoji has a final story for our series of Ghana's entry points dubbed Porous Borders.
These trucks move in and out of Ghana and Togo here at the Nuafe Akanu Joint Border Post. Travelers and traders used to depend solely on their Flower and Segbe border for thoroughfare, but the traffic here created serious congestion. The Joint Border Control System was commissioned in 2017 to reduce the congestion. It was to help check the trucks automatically. But more than 2 years after commissioning, the Joint Border Post is not completely operational. Drivers of long vehicles cannot come to terms with the situation, as well as the difficulty it presents to them. They allege the head of the sector command of the Ghana Revenue Service and Customs, Assistant Commissioner Sheila Vigbedo, has refused to admit any truck carrying goods through this border.
Before this truck, they are giving us this thing, Nasi. We are calling it undertaking. It's 1 month to enter Ghana, come back. But now this woman making it 2 weeks. So we are facing difficult for that one. But every day is a spike. Every day is 5 cities. Though we are paying a penalty. So they just give you 2 weeks. When you go, before you go load from company, they will give you documents. It's more than 2 weeks. If you come back, we can't pay penalty. Sometimes we are paying 80 Ghana, sometimes we are paying 100 Ghana, sometimes we are paying many. We pay almost about 15 Ghana citizens. So that's our program now. When we want to talk to this woman, make you return the team back to 1 month. That before it be 3 months. Before come, we lose time to 2 months. Before end of the year, they come back to 1 month. Yes. Now this woman bring it to 2 weeks.
Who is this woman now?
I wouldn't know you. Okay. They say he be the big
customs officer. The madam of the customs officer.
Yes. So that's
She declined comments in our attempt to get her side of the story. At the time of our visit, the officers were seen attending manually to very few people who were entering the country, whilst some of them seemed idling at the post. At the end of our visit, only 3 commercial vehicles with passengers were checked in manually at the post.
Business is not booming. We are hoping business booms after the completion of the joint border post here. There's pressure on the Aflao border. As you can see, the only car from Togo to Accra is not full.
Apart from the officers who were idling, the border post has just few security officials, so thoroughfare here is very easy. Like all other borders reviewed so far, several unapproved routes exist here also. A Togolese expressed his frustration about the situation.
My advice is it depends on both of the presidents. I don't know how they think about this place, because this place is a very big place for ECOWAS. They invest many money here, plenty money here, but they don't want to get that money, how do you tell it, how to call it, back. So I don't know. In Togo here, they listen passing or undertaking, they are making here. But the Ghana side, they don't make undertaking here. They used to go to make undertaking at Aflao before coming here. All those things make big problems here. Like this place is going very well. Everybody can find job here.
For now, the officials are waiting for the software to make this border post functional, and that will ease the Aflao border pressure, reduce processing time, and also allow trucks to reach their destinations, especially those with perishable goods. It will also enable ECOWAS monitor transactions at the various border points for the collection of the ECOWAS levy. Here is Anthony Avobedo, MCE for Ketu North.
There are some documents that they cannot process at the joint border post that they have to go to Aflao to do. So that means the place is not fully operational, so they still depend on Aflao to do some things. When the trucks come, they will do some of the documentations in Aflao, and some will be done at the joint border post. So I'm of the view that when all these things these bottlenecks are being addressed, the trucks, when they come to Akan, every documentation has to be done at Akan. So that's what we are hoping to have.
A lot of money has been spent on this joint border post. Both staff and users of this route want to see some action as soon as possible. Ivy Setojish reports for Joy News.
Head of the Public Affairs Department of the Ghana Immigration Service, Superintendent Michael Amakwata, says the service will need between 15 to 20,000 officers to man unapproved routes at Ghana's borders. He was reacting to issues highlighted in Joy News series on entry points in Ghana dubbed porous borders. He admits to challenges with logistics, but says the service is doing its best in manning the country's borders. He spoke earlier on News Desk.
The borders are porous. Maybe by the way they were demarcated and by the topography of the areas. These are migrants who are out there in these porous borders, and they know the terrain because they live there and they work there. And you see, on the Kano River, that is the dividing line. And yes, they are in boats and canoes doing their smuggling activities. But what we do, and maybe it has not come out, that we also have identified some of these crossing points that these smugglers normally use. So at times, based on intelligence that we get, and also from our own enforcement operations, we go and ambush them. And we have been making some laudable arrests of rice and oil coming from Cote d'Ivoire into Ghana, then plastic wares and silverware from Ghana going into Cote d'Ivoire. We have approved point of entry.
Exactly.
there you find officers stationed.
Exactly.
Then we have also identified unapproved points of entry. There we go on patrols. Where we think that point is prone for smuggling, we normally will put men there for a period, then they move to other traveling unapproved points. We do not have enough men to be able to be deployed along all these unapproved points. That would be a really difficult task. We have restricted in a way, depending upon allocations that will come to us to be able to employ or recruit. Just the last recruitment we did last year, for the first time, we were able to recruit by government released 1,000 personnel, both officer, corps, and general duty. So we are hoping that maybe another release will come for maybe 1,000 or 1,500. But the last count, I think we have a little over 5,000.
5,000 of them. And obviously, some will be doing administrative work, sitting in the offices at your headquarters. Some will be at the airport, at the regional headquarters. And we are saying that out of this 5,000, we still don't have enough men to man all the unapproved, especially the ones known to be used by many people.
We don't.
In your estimation, how many people making up your service do you think will need to say, okay, that's a good number we can go with, that's enough men to
man the borders?
Yes.
Maybe I would say about 15 to 20,000.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yes.
That's more than double of what you already have.
In Elubwa, along the Tano River, our officers have identified about 10 to 20 unapproved points.
And how many men would you need stationed at each of these points?
The unapproved point, maybe not less than 6.
Okay.
You see, not less than 6. Then there may be the also has to have the communication guide, like I said, because if there's any operation that the 6 cannot contain, they have to call for reinforcement, so they will need vehicle.
Meanwhile, 6 immigration officers who busted a fertilizer smuggling attempt have been honored by the service for rejecting a bribe of 25,000 cedis.
They value ID cards a lot, as we wanted to see your passport. Even when ID cards will be used, it is for those within the border community that we call border residents, who will not travel beyond about 4-kilometer radius. So they can come in with the ID cards and it's recorded. And mostly, or generally, they are known. But to make an international travel from Nigeria to Ghana, or from Guinea to Ghana, and you just want to enter with a voter's ID card, it will be difficult.
But they say your men also take monies from them. So they don't accept the voter's ID card, but they take some money and they allow them in. So it's cost 90, isn't it?
It's not cost 90. I wouldn't also hold brief. Yes, definitely 5,000 plus, they may bad nuts, but they are very equally good officers who are within the service. And it shows recently in the number of interceptions that we have done. 25,000, and you refuse to let go 1,950 bags of fertilizer. So they are good ones there. That's why we want to showcase them and to let other officers know that when you are committed and dedicated to your job, definitely commanders are watching and the kind of appreciation will come.
Now, the Network for Women's Rights, NetRights, has challenged the new Patriotic Party government to pass the Affirmative Action Bill before the end of this year. The group says the passage of the bill will serve as proof of government's commitment to gender equality. Programs Manager of NetRight, Patricia Akakpo, made the call on Friday when gender advocates from across Africa converged in Accra to review outcomes of the 1995 Beijing Women's Conference. Joy News editor Arava Kumsing sat through the discussions and has come through with this report.
Represented in decision-making spaces such as Parliament and government. Programs Manager for the Network for Women's Rights, NetRight, Patricia Akakpo, says although several gains have been made, a lot more remains to be done.
I think we need to be more serious with the way we handle women's rights and gender equality issues. We need more political will to ensure that the things that we sign on to are implemented.
As part of efforts to ensure governments carry out the resolutions at the Beijing conference, gender advocacy groups in Africa regularly hold review meetings to assess implementation. At this event, it emerged that Ghana is yet to submit its review report.
What is happening
after the May
is all the
2019
countries
deadline.
except for Libya were mandated to produce a national report on Beijing Plus 25 by the 31st of May. So currently, There are 33 countries which have already submitted their reports, and their reports are live on the UNECA website. So just is there anyone in this room whose country is not on that list? Anyone? Anyone? Ghana.
Patricia Kakpo is unhappy with the development and says government must do more to demonstrate its commitment to addressing gender inequality. As a first step, she says, the MPP government should pass the Affirmative Action Bill before January 2020.
Next year is an election year, but of course they are on break. When they come back, the election campaign has started, so it will be difficult. So if they really want to tell us that they are really committed, then they should pass the Affirmative Action Bill before the end of this year.
The forum also afforded young people, most of whom were not born before the Beijing conference, to share what they believe are the outcomes of the conference as well as their aspirations.
I wasn't born before Beijing or during Beijing in 1995. And I want to say that young people have really been sidelined from the whole process.
I can look back and say that certain things I enjoy now as a result of the fight of our mothers from Mexico through to Copenhagen to Beijing. I wasn't born when Beijing happened. I was not even thought of, but I look back and I remember send your girl child to school. I remember more adverts, more encouraging pieces on girls going to school. I remember at a point in our lives, we had people from the domestic violence unit.
Actionable steps to transform society. Araba Kumson, Joy News, Accra.
Now, legendary Ghanaian photographer James Bano celebrated his 90th birthday in June this year. To commemorate the milestone, the British High Commission organized a birthday party for him with celebrities in attendance and his pictures on display. The legend was Kwame Nkrumah's personal photographer, saw his contribution to art and culture feted by many whose lives have been impacted by his genius.
Birthday to you, happy birthday to you, happy birthday dear James, happy birthday to you. How old are you now? How old are you now?
I was shocked to see my photographs displayed here. I didn't realize there were preparations to put my pictures here at all. And I think it's the work of Mr. Mike Quest. Give me a hand, give me a hand. And let me correct the relationship or the situation or what Mike Quest has done. A friend of his, somebody with whom he went to school, met me in Delhi, in India. I think Ghana at 50, and I'd gone there to exhibit my work. And we met. And, you know, and I said I wanted a camera. And he helped me to get a camera locally at a cheap price. And he returned to Ghana to tell his friend, Mike, that there's a photographer in London whose work should be promoted. The first time I've met a Ghanaian who is showing interest in another photographer's work. And Mike rang me from Ghana, you know, to talk to me in London.
Now, there is a new perspective to dealing with domestic violence in marriages, and that is to do with criminalizing sex deprivation. That's the latest advocacy by gender-based NGO Eupheministi, which is pushing for the enactment of laws to punish spouses who deliberately starve their partners of sex. According to the group, sex deprivation is a major source of abuse in many homes. The issue came up as one of the main concerns in a report highlighting gaps in gender-based violence laws.
Sex is critical to marriage, and I believe both parties expect that marriage entails sex. We are saying that sex needs to be managed properly so that both parties are not offended by the way one handles his or her understanding of sex. And therefore, we believe that an extreme position that deprives one party from sex consistently will warrant a domestic violence. And therefore, we need to educate ourselves to have a fair appreciation of the role sex plays in marriages, so that it's being withheld from one party does not culminate into domestic violence that we seek to prevent.
Also, Regional Coordinator of the Domestic Violence and Victim Support Unit, Dr. Mercy Wilson-Brown, however, disagrees. She says criminalizing sex deprivation would not be the way to go.
On this point, where we want to make it an offense, so to speak, recorded or codified offense that a partner or a woman must allow the man sex anytime. It's, for me, offense the reason for the removal or for the repeal of Section 42G, which was under our Criminal Offences Act in 2007. It was repealed. It was repealed that because we saw that most of the intimate partner abuses or battery emanated from the fact that men felt that at marriage you gave blanket consent to sex or sexual activity under that law. And therefore, when people who were fighting to bring to being domestic violence law were doing that, then they decided, remove it. Otherwise, we're also coming for marital rape. So since the men did not want marital rape represented in the domestic violence law, then the women also say, then remove that portion so that we can have a balance. So if we want to go back and bring it, then we are going back to square one. For me, I think we should all come to understand that at marriage, you have consented to doing something. There are responsibilities. However, if that person, for very reasonable reasons, cannot do that action, why do you have to force that person? Or why do you think that that person must be beaten? So it's not a good thing. There must be a balance.
All right, thank you very much for watching, and you have a good night. But coming up tomorrow, do make a date for the election headquarters as we bring you comprehensive coverage of the NDC parliamentary primaries from across the country. Have a good night.